simultaneously making it as accessible as possible through cultural performances and hosting a range of speakers who will explore this topic in all its depth, given their expertise in activism, academia, and art. The conference hopes to establish the significance of a caste census in taking forward conversations on reservation, access to resources, wealth distribution, participation of marginalized caste groups in governance and electoral politics. The conference will hold a series of 6 panelists addressing different aspects of representation, political, electoral, and cultural. This would not be possible without the tireless efforts of our organizing committee, who have so thoughtfully conceptualized each panel, its speakers, and the questions it seeks to explore. I extend a heartfelt thanks to our moderators and speakers for so enthusiastically agreeing to be a part of this conference and endeavor and create a discourse for anti-caste activism in global academia. What started with months of planning soon turned into weeks, days, hours, and as of now is just minutes away from beginning. Without further ado, I would like to introduce our very special keynote speaker for this evening, Dr. Sona Jariamans. Sona Jariamans is the Vice Chancellor of Sidhu Kanhu University, Dumka. She became the first Adivasi woman to hold the post of a Vice Chancellor in India in 2020. Prior to that, she was the professor of computer science at Jawaharlal Nehru University for more than 2 decades and also the dean of the department. From 2018 to 19, she was the president of the JNU Teachers Association and was at the forefront of many social justice campaigns. Alongside raising questions of Adivasi rights across national and international platforms, she has been a leading voice in demanding the inclusion of marginalized sections in public universities. Apart from this, she has also been a special mentor and friend to many, and we could not be more honored to have her be our first keynote speaker for this conference. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Aditi. Counting castes, the theme of the conference and the sub-theme being breaking the caste census deadlock. I'm grateful to the organizers of this very important 2-day virtual conference on a very, very important and much centered, contented matter of on caste census in India, for having invited me also to be part of this conference, virtual conference. I'm further honored to be invited to deliver the keynote address on the topic. I am personally grateful to the organizers who approached me, especially from the South Asia Department of South Asia Studies in the University of Oxford, and various other organizations which were enumerated have been collaborating to organize this conference. I would like to begin with the confession that I think I'm the least eligible person to be speaking with, let's say, authority, if at all, as a keynote address on this very, very important topic. Given my academic training and area of academic research, I think, except having had an experiential journey, I have probably only disqualifications rather than qualifications to be the first speaker, the keynote speaker, and in the series of so many sessions, 6 sessions that would follow in the 2 days. Therefore, having no substantial authority on the topic, yet compelled by the tone of the conference, which is to break the caste census deadlock, I have agreed to present my thoughts. And therefore, probably I wouldn't have very solid references to quote from. And I do trust the sessions in the 6 panels, with the panelists in the 6 panels, would deliberate on the matters which may be very academic in nature, which may be very pragmatic also in nature, and would also conclude with some material and matter for the participants and especially organizers to come up with more publications in future. I would like to recognize the importance of the 3 sessions today and the 3 sessions tomorrow, and the eminent panelists who would deliberate and contribute to various dimensions of the themes of the sessions that are expected to be covered, and hopefully there would be a sense of not achievement, but satisfaction at the end of the 2-day conference. As a stereotypical starting point, I would have liked to start with the classical questions of 5 W's and 1 H regarding either the caste or caste census. As Census 2011 is the historical background of the debate, and that socioeconomic caste census, which is abbreviated or acronym now better used is SECC, is the outcome of the preparation for Census 2011, as done by the Dr. Manmohan Singh government in 2010. This happened to be the first paperless enumeration by handheld electronic devices in 640 districts in India, as the claims are. Now, given the complex concept, such as the concept of caste and the layered Indian society, therefore, the debate as the one unfolded after the publication of the census data or bringing them out in the public fora in July 2014 is natural, but then needs a serious attention even before arriving at some kind of conclusion or to close the matter in one way or the other. India, the largest democracy in the world, striving to be Vishwaguru now, has no dearth of expertise and talent in policy drafting. India also has a democratic state, has set processes of approving, publishing, thus policies, rolling them out, implementing, and so on and so forth. In my address today, more than from a standpoint of a data scientist, that I would like to present my views, and that of a responsible citizen, than expert in the topic, as I confessed in the beginning. But I have 2 submissions broadly. First, having adequately mastered the discipline of economics, we in India are also good in designing schemes, programs, aligning them with policies. As I said earlier, also we are master of in drafting policies. In order to also these programs and schemes to speak into or correlate with the various aspects of the policy. Needless to state that the Rural Development Ministry decided to use the SECC data in all its programs, such as Manrega, National Food Security Act, Deen Dayal Upadhyay Gramin Kaushalya Yojana, etc. It also put on record that SECC 2011 was the 4th exercise conducted by the government of India to identify households living below poverty line. And BPL is the acronym which is normally and popularly used. Okay, these 3 prior efforts were in 1992, 1997, and 2002, and came then, the entire process of preparation for 2011 census, and to also, not only have caste census, but the 2 other words prefixed to that are socio-economic and caste census 2011. Okay. So it does also give a glimpse of the background that this was the 4th attempt to identify the households living below poverty line. Now, besides the disagreement, the then Union Home Minister pertaining to the difficulties in counting caste during the process of enumeration that were proved true through the samples from Maharashtra. That is, as opposed to 494 caste categories in Maharashtra, or probably they are prevalent all over the country in various states too. In 2011 census, 4,28,677 castes came out. Okay, so this census yielded almost 1,000 times more the number. So probably these were some of the apprehensions which were also proven true. Now, different terms to indicate same caste in various places or even within the same state at times, or similar terms to specify different castes brought to the problem of aggregation and disaggregation, or rather segregation, aggregation and segregation. And that became a major problem. That becomes a major problem in aggregation of data, because without aggregation, there is no usefulness, and usefulness for the intended purposes. One of the purposes was to identify PPL. A very high percentage of castes enumerated had population less than 100 persons. Now, this is another byproduct that was observed. And just in Maharashtra, in the 10.3 crore population, of the 10.3 crore population, 1.17 crore, which is roughly of 11%, were found to be of no caste. Okay. So therefore, the raw data so acquired was practically no good. And further, to map the caste to their socio-economic status, such as privileges and deprivation, was again a complex problem faced by the state. Therefore, are we faced with a question amidst many answers that any census data promises to offer? If yes, the question may be of two types for me. That relate to the enumeration, the process of enumeration, and the second relates to the use of data. The first question, driven out of the issues of the raw data about the goodness of the data, its authenticity, integrity, accuracy, so on and so forth, is related to the enumeration process. And it appears to me, at least, that it is a solvable problem. But again, for the scale and at times diversity can still pose challenges. And Census 2011 is believed to have covered 130 crore, and enumeration being a solvable problem, given the kind of digital literacy, should be again possible. So therefore, this question, I would like to pause at this point and not take further. My second question, or rather the second question, which I was trying to indicate earlier, pertains to the use of data. Now, this would help me position my second point also that I promised to make in the beginning. This indicates I'm inching towards my almost, to cover my second point and towards the closure. If a survey, if we survey the programs and schemes and policies, the outcomes of the questions are raised in the realm of economy of the country. Okay, the issues and problems are articulated in the economic framework, as India is also a welfare state. But these may be proper and appropriate methodology-wise. But is this the only way? Are we looking for solutions to answer what the data reveals? Do the analysis of data speak into the policy, speak into the implementation of the policy, or even correlate with the programs? What picture of economic condition of the country has the data since the first census in 1931 given us? We are well versed by now with the triangular graph that is drawn out of the wealth distribution data. Okay, it does not require me to be a computer science person, to be an economist, to even guess the percentage share the top 10% or top 20% of Indian population hold. And so to guess what percentage of wealth all the scheduled tribe and scheduled castes each hold is again doesn't require too much of brainstorming. Is this the learning from census data of India? Or what is the learning from having census repeatedly every 10 years? I think the answer to my first question, is this the learning out of census data of India? I would say for myself is no. And many other observations emerge from the analysis of the census data for me. And so what is that I propose today? Besides fearing the majoritarianism and all that it may entail, dissecting the origin, construction, perpetuation of caste system in India, and also an attempt to look for very deep-rooted questions by digging deep again to their roots. I think we can still remain sidetracked or be following the same beaten path. It may be an oversight on my part, but I propose an active discourse that is around the term development. Time and again, I myself have also tried to pose this question to my colleagues and counterparts in social sciences and otherwise development studies, that I think the term development needs to be looked at and contextualized again afresh for India and in India. I am unable to see the rules of the game. I mean, in the entire process, what I'm trying to say is that I'm unable to see the rules of the game be laid out even before the game begins. What I mean is that, even before intending a particular kind of census and to get into the NSS or NSSO data and being referring to those time and again for various arguments, I feel the indicators that serve the purpose and would also become a check and balance points, they should be outlined and categorically agreed upon even before a policy is approved, such as the decision for even doing caste census data, okay? So that the indicators would provide the basis for revision of the policy, revision, or even to redo or revise the programs and schemes and etc., or even customize the revisions if needed. Do the implementers of the policy know the parameters? Most of the time, they know the indicators or parameters for their own evaluation, rather than what I'm trying to indicate is the indicators so that the subsequent census would speak into the effectiveness of the policy, the way they would be implemented. And therefore, I see that the way things are taken forward here, especially if a question arises from a census data, Even before doing something differently, those indicators and parameters must be outlined so that the subsequent census data would be able to reveal those. And it's not the implementers' parameters as to what are they to achieve, because then the implementation, we only get to see the percentage of implementation. We don't get to see the reflection of the implementation from the subsequent census data. This is what I'm trying to point at. As a common citizen, we would like to invert the wealth distribution triangle. Okay, that may be the common citizen's zeal. Or therefore, what shape of the graph the economists, the leaders, the society is looking for? Is the subject of Millennium Development Goals or Sustainable Development Goals only for those engaged in academics or bureaucracy, or even in the bureaucracy, to have peaceful conversation and feel good conversations with the international communities? Or do the goals carve out and articulate the goals under the SDG? Do they have nothing to do with caste census or the matters that relate to caste census? What I'm also trying to hint at is in a state like Tamil Nadu, where only 1% scheduled tribes exist, 1% population. Even if the economic indicators work fine for the 99%, are we here ready to accept if those indicators are not applicable to this 1% Adivasi population in Tamil Nadu? So this is the qualitative question that I'm looking at, and not looking for quantitative answers. Okay, I seek the solution that I seek to see the graph as a rectangular one, the one of parity, the one that communicates parity in the society. How should we achieve this, or how should we go forward? I seek and I look for intently the solutions that to two babies born in any two places in our country, or two babies born in the same hospital or same location but two different families, okay, would these solutions offer the two babies equal opportunity? Equal opportunity to health, to healthcare systems, to food, to education, to employment, and all these with equity be the logical and the rational basis. I seek an intentional common denominator to yield dignity to all citizens to all citizens, and making justice a habit rather than an exercise that is only reserved for a particular space. And therefore, I intently wish to look for this common denominator that would not continue to perpetrate the hierarchical society where each one of us are born, but not by our choice. We were not asked where we wanted to be born. And so, in closing, I would like to make an adaptation of a poem from, it's a letter to a young poet by Rainer Maria Rilke, and it reads, "Be patient toward all that is unsolved in my heart, and try to love the questions themselves. I live the questions now. Perhaps I will then gradually, without noticing it, will live along some distant day into the answers." And Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me to just throw up some thoughts of mine and lots of questions. But I really hope that the two-day conference would be a fruitful one with very engaging session, because we have some very, very, very eminent panelists who would make contribution into the specific topics, specific themes in the 6 sessions. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I think you raised some very pertinent points with regard to data and its larger purpose, and I think central questions to what we're trying to achieve with this caste census. So thank you so much for sharing your insights on that. We're going to start panel 1 very shortly. Just request everybody to stay. Thank you.
Hello, are you there?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, fine. I'm Dilip.
Hello.
Yeah, fine.
I can't hear.
Welcome back, everyone. We are all set to begin the first panel of the conference, Rethinking Majority and Minority in India, the question of the caste census. The session will be moderated by Dr. Asha Singh, who is Assistant Professor at the Center for Studies in Social Sciences, Calcutta. Among other things, Dr. Asha Singh's work revolves around the category of the other backward classes and its limitations and possibilities, especially with respect to gender. Asha, thank you so much for hosting this for us, and over to you.
Thank you, Shireen. Am I audible and visible?
Yes, you are.
I thank the organizers for inviting me to this vibrant gathering. Today we have with us an amazing panel, but before I introduce them, let me elaborate upon certain broad points. The need for a caste census is well established in our minds. We know that a population census refers to a process of collecting compiling and publishing demographic, economic, and social data at a specified time to all persons in a country or defined territory. The census includes every individual, irrespective of sex or age, and separate data are recorded for each person by direct enumeration. A census in a democratic society is never complete without publication and dissemination. We, as citizens, have the right to access and analyze the census. It is first and foremost a public document. A population census is an exercise that can be planned and executed only by the state. This is the case because only state possesses the logistical and administrative capacities for such an exercise. It is beyond the reach of private entities and mass organizations. In 2011 census, we had around 25 lakh enumerators, 20,000 charge officers directly involved in the census operation. They were trained by 54,000 master trainers, 725 master trainer facilitators, and 90 national trainers. Additionally, many more were involved in ensuring the quality and coverage of the operation. The state spent nearly 2,200 crores on the 2011 census. This means rupees 18 per individual. Because simultaneity is an important principle in census, the state has to ensure that the final house-to-house canvassing is completed within a specified period with a definite cutoff date throughout the country. So it is thus, and it is possible only by the state to conduct regular census and furnish critical indicators in a timely fashion. Census is legally governed by the Census Act of 1948 and Census Rules of 1990. The population census is the cornerstone of state policy, social development, and political assertions. We know that census forms the basis of delimitation of election constituencies. With the emergence of modern statistics and social sciences in the 19th century, the focus of enumeration expanded from tax collection and army recruitment to understanding the socio-economic and cultural conditions of the population. Thus, we see a cognitive shift from counting important families, feudatories, or adult males to counting every individual, high, low, servant, master, women, nomads, disabled, aged, children, everyone. There was a paradigm shift in statecraft. It recognized the individual as a valuable entity. Moreover, people in the subcontinent were counted and classified according to certain universally comparable standards of literacy, occupation, housing, civic conditions, etc. We got to know how many in our region or community were literate. What is the approximate size of our caste or class of workers? Where do we stand in civic communities, occupational ladders, and what is the relative condition of women? In fact, for the first time in the history of the caste society, castes were compared with each other irrespective of where they stood in local or regional hierarchies. These comparisons were part of other British documents as well. For example, in his representation to the Simon Commission on behalf of Bahishkrit Bharat Sabha, Dr. Baba Saheb Ambedkar compares the educational attainments across caste categories and religions, using the Hunter Commission among the other documents to make a case for marginalized communities. With universal standards, definitions, and comparisons came modern demands to improve one's lot. Thus, the census became a harbinger for social mobilization and cross-caste dialogues and alliances. Moreover, to the utter surprise of the upper caste allies of the colonizer, it became clear that historically marginalized communities were not ready to lie down and accept their notions of hierarchy. They started making competing claims to move higher up in the Varna system with the help of the British interlocutor. It can be argued that in absence of modern integers for concrete politics, now we hark back to mythical categories and legacies, going back to an ancient past which cannot be affirmed or disputed in any intelligible fashion, and usually goes against the interests of the community in the long run. Today, we, as marginalized majority, especially the OBCs, find solace in thinking of ourselves as kings or rajas of distant past. Also, because we do not have access to vital integers that give us a picture of our status in the world. The bandwagon of myth making and Kshatriya fairy tales are anti women to the core. They leave us with dependent fairy tales of being wives or daughters or mothers of distant kings. The absence of caste based data and presence of caste driven lives has meant we are kept deliberately ignorant about our lives. One may ask, why are numbers important? Some even say that enumerating and counting identities is dangerous. It leads to further consolidation of identities. They argue that castes become more caste conscious with counting. However, the dangers involved in not counting castes is far more lethal. When we count and compare castes along secular developmental indicators of health, education, wealth, land ownership, representation in bureaucracy, etc., we are setting a more constructive agenda for politics. Having said that, I welcome all the speakers for this panel. They need no introduction. They are well-known personalities. So today we have with us Dilip Mandal, senior journalist and former managing editor, India Today. Kanimozhi Karunanidhi, politician, poet, and member of parliament. Satish Deshpande, professor, University of Delhi. Grace Banu, trans rights activist and founder of Trans Rights Now Collective. So I welcome you all. And first of all, I invite Dilip Mandal to speak. Sir, you have 15 minutes. Over to you.
Yeah. Am I audible? Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, sir.
Thank you so much for the organizers for organizing this very important discussion. And this is important, especially because this is census year, and we should have conducted census by this time. But I think this issue is still being debated in India, and I suspect there must be someone in the country who does not want the reality of caste demography to emerge. So who are they? Why is someone is not ready to know about the certainties or rather uncertainties of such an exercise? So are they the so-called hegemonic upper caste people occupying positions of power in government and bureaucracy, or in media and in judiciary? Or are they the leaders of the BJP or maybe the Congress party? Why they are afraid of such an exercise, I just can't comprehend. Actually, census exercises are not very unique to India and countries all around the world, actually, all the democracies. They collect data on race, ethnicities, language, religion, gender, and all other sociological categories. This is not unique. And likewise, India actually also collects data on religion, language, gender, even kacha house, pakka house. They collect all sort of data. But caste, that has been some sort of enigma for policymakers, actually, and government of different hues. They just don't want to have caste data, and it's not about BJP. So the problem hasn't started in 2014. So I will deal in a brief history of census post India, and I will like to argue why we should have census. So, as I have told you earlier, that caste enumeration is not a novelty in India. Actually, during British period, since 1878 to be precise, and 1881 was the first synchronized census. So castes were conducted in decadal census always before independence. It's a common practice, like I have told, that in democratic countries to enumerate diversity of socioeconomic disparities and all the other factors in society. So, but Narendra Modi government at this time has released 20th livestock census figures. We have livestock census figures. So now we know the numbers of cows, goats, pigs, yaks, camels, even horses. So we know all those data, and almost all other domesticated animals. We know data pertaining to that. And why government is collecting this data? To frame policies. Policies should be based on data, and it gives deep insight actually. And the statistical details help the government in formulating informed policies. But this is not case with the citizenry, and our citizens are not counted with all those categories. And as you know that even the United Nations has formulated a model norm for conducting the census. And what it suggests? It suggests collecting all sort of comprehensive details about all communities and citizenship characters. So these are the this is how census should be done. But this is not happening in the case of India. And we actually, it's not true that we don't conduct caste census. We always collect data pertaining to scheduled caste and scheduled tribes. So, and as I've told you earlier, that we collect data related to religion and language and all that. And we don't collect data of a certain category, and that is especially OBCs and what we call oppressor caste or other upper caste or Dvij caste or Savan caste. These two categories we don't enumerate. This is the problem. And because of that, we are facing so many issues actually. If you see Indian Constitution, and it's a chapter on fundamental right, Article 16.4 to be precise, it says that backward classes will be provided reservation in state services, provided they are not adequately represented. Now, to know that whether a certain class is adequately represented or not, we need to have two sets of data about their total number and what is their representation in any certain services or jobs. Without having these two sets of data, we can't say that this caste or class or category is underrepresented or overrepresented. So, you know, you can understand what sort of problem we are going to have and we are facing because of not having caste enumeration. Actually, this issue came up early in 1977 and 78, and the demand for this caste census came into the fore during the Mandal Commission report. I have that report with me, and in its even the introductory chapter, Mandal Commission wrote that we are depending on 1931 census, and we will have such problems in the future also. So we are suggesting and we are recommending that in the next census, the government of India should conduct caste census. So this is part of Mandal Commission report. So government actually had opportunity to conduct caste census in 2001. And it was very much possible because before that, if I remember the year correctly, in 1998, Devegowda government has proposed and passed a resolution in cabinet that in the next census, caste will be enumerated. But Vajpayee government at that time, in 2001, decided not to have caste census. Advani was the home minister at that time. So they just not followed the cabinet note of Devegowda government. So BJP has some problem with caste census. So this will be for the second time they are scuttling caste census. 2001 census was scuttled by Vajpayee government. Though Congress has its own share of problems, because the next opportunity was in 2011 when they should have the government should have conducted caste census, And they have mandate of Lok Sabha also. During that time, all political parties, and DMK was at the forefront of that time. Kanimozhi ma'am must be knowing that all political parties, and headed by Lalu Prasad Yadav ji and DMK, and even Mulayam Singh Yadav and Sharad Yadav ji, they all supported caste census. And after that, consensus was there in the parliament, and Manmohan Singh actually made a commitment on the floor of the House that in 2011 census, caste will be enumerated. But Pranab Mukherjee has played his own game, and he was chairperson of the group of ministers, and he decided to conduct caste census separate from the decadal census, which was not under Census Act of 1948. So you know that after that special socio-economic caste census of 2011 was exercised in such a brutality that after spending 4,893 crores, we don't have any data related to socio-economic caste census of 2011. We almost spent 5,000 crores on that exercise. And one fine morning in 2015, Arun Jaitley, at that time, I think he was law minister, he organized a press conference to say that SECC is not providing any reliable data, and there are 9 million mistakes, 90 lakh mistakes in the data. So he formed a expert group under the chairperson of Arvind Pangadia, then chairman of Niti Aayog, to classify and complete the caste data thrown up by SECC. But Pangadia left the government in 2016 post demonetization and joined his teaching job at Columbia University. So we don't have any data after spending even 5,000 crore rupees in SECC. So this is the brief history of census and caste census, which we still haven't conducted yet. And in 2019, you must be remembering that Rajnath Singh, then Home Minister, he promised that OBC census will be done. But that was because of the OBC vote, actually, because at that time Narendra Modi was pitching himself as OBC leader, but now government is saying that they are not, the caste enumeration is not under their consideration. This census will not enumerate caste. And for the first time since 1881, we are not having a decadal census, and that's all because of the caste issue, because the government is doing all sort of election and everything is happening. Only thing that is not happening because of COVID is caste census. So that is the problem. And as you must be aware that we are relying on upon a 90-year or rather 100-year-old data to formulate our policies at this juncture. And if we miss this year, we will relying on 100-year-old data, and it will cause so many problems actually. So we in India have numerous policies based on caste. So it's always better to have caste data. I don't understand what is the problem and why certain classes of people are afraid of it. What sort of data we are expecting? What uncertainties they are afraid of? Because actually, I think Satish Deshpande ji will speak after me, and he is expert on the topic of castelessness and caste blindness, and how upper caste actually use castelessness as its strategy and tactics to hide the hegemonic structure. And so I am leaving that part to him, because he is expert on this topic, and he actually started the discussion on this topic. But my argument is that not having caste data is hugely problematic, and like I can give you one example. Central government gives grants for OBC development to states. This budget, if you see the budget papers, there are grants for OBC development, and that is given to every state, and that without knowing the number or economic status of the OBCs in that state. So they base it on the total population. So these sort of problems are there, and it's blatantly wrong and ridiculous to have policies pertaining to OBCs but not having data on OBCs. So even this problem of many social groups asking for OBC status, how to deal with that without having data to say that, no, hey, look, you are adequately represented. Why are you asking for OBC quota or whatever? So in all these agitation, you will see that government crack down on them and use violence, and this sort of things are happening. So without data, even no social groups can be excluded from OBC list, because if you see the National Commission of Backward Class mandate, it's there that they should exclude if some social group has attained some certain level, but without having data, no social group can be excluded. So my argument is that this is the time we all should demand that the government should go for caste census, because in 2021, not having caste data and having policies related to caste, because even if you see that my last argument is that now this EWS case is going to be discussed, and it's there in the Constitution bench of the Supreme Court, and Supreme Court will deliberate on it. And the issue is why EWS quota is of 10%, why it's not 12%, or why it's not 7%, because in many of the states, the category covered under EWS, their total population might be 3% or 2%. Tamil Nadu, or even in Chhattisgarh, or in Jharkhand, or in Andhra Pradesh, the categories covered under EWS, their population might not be 10%, but still they are getting 10% reservation in many of the states. Tamil Nadu is not giving any OBC, EWS reservation, but other states are giving 10% of EWS quota without knowing their total number. So this sort of problems will crop up. So not having caste data is not going to serve any purpose. I'm of the opinion that in this census, we must have caste enumeration, and it should not be any different exercise other than this decadal census. It should be under Census Act of 1948, and states, last thing, states can't do caste census because it's in the union list in the 7th schedule of the Constitution. So states can do their caste surveys, but they can't conduct caste census. So it's on the union government to conduct this caste census, and that's it for now. And if there is any question later on, I would try to answer those questions. Thank you, organizers, for organizing this wonderful conference and giving me opportunity to speak. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dilip Mandal sir. It was a very engaging talk you gave us, and you also clarified many things which are in ambiguous territory. So now let me invite the next speaker, Kanimozhi Karunanidhi. Ma'am, you have 15 minutes. Over to you.
Welcome to everybody. And, I thank you all for inviting me for this panel discussion on caste-based census. And it was a pleasure listening to Mr. Dilip Mandal. And I wait and look forward to listen to the other speakers as well. Today we are discussing the caste-based census and the need for it. This has been the demand of the DMK for a very, very long time, and just not the DMK. And as was mentioned here, many of the political parties which were part of the UPA government have insisted on this caste-based census and the need for it. Different political parties have given representation and insist, and we've been asking for this caste-based census to be done. And sadly, the census which was taken in 2011 has not seen the light of the day. We don't know what is there in the census, and it is not made public. And I mean, after spending so much on it and so much effort being put into it, today the government says it is inaccurate and it cannot be shared with the people. And we know for a truth and for a fact that how much of wrong information is being bandied about, and government has never really been keen on giving right statistics. I mean, it's always been what suits them. Maybe the statistics and the numbers which they saw was not a very happy one, so it was not made public. We cannot pretend that there are people who are against this entire process of caste-based census because they think it is going to rekindle the feeling of caste, and people might use it politically. And these are the arguments which are, put forward against this caste census and data. But we cannot hide from the fact that in India, caste plays a major role. Caste and today religion and gender bias is there. So these are things which we cannot hide from, and that is the fact. And there's nothing which happens here without caste. Elections, candidates election, even for local body elections, sadly the fact is that you cannot decide your candidates, without considering or taking into account, which caste the majority of people living there belong to. So when this is the real truth, we cannot, and no political party can, give out a list of office bearers without taking into consideration which caste they belong to, what representation is there, and who's being left out and who's being included. So this is the sad truth. And nobody wants to rent out their houses to people who belong to certain caste or certain religion, and marriages are still a no. And who lives in your colony, who's your neighbor, who you would let live next to you, who are the kids who can play in your street. Everything is decided by who they are and what caste they belong to. People in rural areas, we know sadly that they do not even want to share the same ration shop. People from two different communities, or go to the same temple, or refuse to be buried in the same space, or cremated in the same space. So when this is the real truth, we cannot pretend that caste census is going to rekindle it, and it is something which is completely not there, and we will be bringing it back to the center stage by the caste-based census, and we have to accept the fact that we've had reservations, and people who talk about meritocracy say that we've had reservations for so many years. But there is a bias against reservation, and I'd like to give you a few examples where the central universities, around in 440 central universities, around, I think there are 4,482 vacant posts, and these vacant posts are only in the reserved category. So people prefer to have vacant posts than give an opportunity to somebody who comes through reservation. And this is the fact. So this is just one department. This is just the central universities. But in every department, like how many officers in the central government, how many IAS officers belong to backward communities, how many officers in the PMO belong to backward communities or SCs and STs. We can count the number in your hand. So this is the representation we've got achieved after so many years of reservation. But I will not say that reservation has not achieved anything. I, for a fact, in Tamil Nadu have seen the change and the opportunities which are being given to people. But there is a concentrated effort also to stall this and to make sure that people do not get opportunities through reservation. So when these are the politics behind this, the biases behind this are real, we have to know the fact that what is a caste structure and what is the reality which is there in this country. There are, as it was mentioned by the previous speaker, everybody wants to get into the MBC category or the BC category, or there's so much of political agitations and changes which people want to see, and there's so many aspirations. But without facts, I think there can be no justice done to the people without knowing what actually reservations have achieved on a larger scale. I think there are studies, like a few years ago, the then Chief Minister of Karnataka also said that he has commissioned a caste-based study in Karnataka. And there are governments which are looking into it and to see what has been achieved, and there are smaller organizations and groups which work on it. I think we need, something nationwide for a better understanding of actually what the breakdown of the caste census is, what we've achieved, and what we have, where we have to reach, and who needs more representation. And without facts, statistics, I think we will not be able to really make a difference. We can just, go on blindly. But without these facts, I don't think we can really achieve much. And today we see that voices of the upper, so-called upper caste, or the castes which do not part with power, speaking against the minorities. I always say that the women's reservation bill, it is one bill which is supported by everybody, but it's never been able to be passed in the parliament. So because I mean, I think across the parties, nobody wants to empower women really, and nobody wants to, give space to women in a powerful space, powerful space with the political power and decision-making opportunities. We do not want women to be part of, such an important debate which makes laws and which decides policies in this country. So likewise, I think there are forces today which have become very, very powerful. And I will not say it just happened overnight. These forces have been there, entrenched in the system, and they've always been very powerful and behind the scenes, who've not been in limelight, but who have been able to become so powerful that they can stop policies, they can change policies, and they can stall processes which will actually bring justice to the majority in this country which deserve it. Today, when we talk about OBC rights, we talk about, I think, when Mandal Commission and when VP Singh, today, I think Tamil Nadu looks at him, very, when we talk about our ex-Prime Minister VP Singh, we look at, he is a hero for us in Tamil Nadu. And when the rest of India was totally against him. And recently a friend, a journalist of mine, quoted from a book which was written by his daughter or granddaughter. It was a quote that when they traveled into other parts of India, they were stoned, and people insulted him. But when he came to Tamil Nadu, people were standing on either side of the road and throwing rose petals at him. So in Tamil Nadu, I think we celebrated him, and when the Mandal Commission was implemented, and we thought there will be a change. We thought that the backward communities will get the justice and opportunities which they deserve to have got, but unfortunately, nothing has moved after that. And now the 10% reservation for the economically backward, which the so-called economically backward, which the central government has brought in, this is also seen as it is completely against the reservation for the backward communities and the SCs and STs, and taking away opportunities from them. And we see in many of the institutions, when a person from the backward community qualifies in the general category, they are still pushed back into the backward community seats or into the SE or ST seats. I mean, many of the organizations pretend or work in a way that the general seats are reserved only for a particular strata or caste structure, and so in nearly 40% of the seats are reserved for forward communities, and only the rest of the seats are shared by the others who've been oppressed for centuries. So this caste-based census, I think, when in spite of all the arguments, and today we see during elections how political parties use these the statistics and the data they have on caste to bring caste together, and the different permutations and combinations they work to reap political benefits. These are all arguments which are put forth against a caste-based census. But in spite of all this, I think without this census, we can never understand what the truth is, and we can never understand the distance which we would have to cover to make a difference. So I definitely, as a parliamentarian, I would like to promise this panel that DMK has always consistently raised this issue in Parliament, and today I promise you all here that I will also take it up in Parliament and raise it in Parliament, and also speak to like-minded parliamentarians to raise this issue again in Parliament and bring it to the attention of the people and the media once again, because it's a very important debate, and we cannot miss this opportunity and once again wait for another a decade or a few more to actually find out what the truth is and what our achievements have been and what we have to do. So I thank you for this opportunity, and I once again promise that we will definitely bring this discussion and this debate to the attention of the Parliament. Thank you.
Thank you, Kanimozhi ma'am. We really appreciate your commitment and your promises. We really look forward to it. And I'm sure you would be taking it to the Parliament, and it will become, again important, and surely some result will come out of it. Thank you so much for such a engaging talk. We are really grateful. Now let me move on to the next speaker of this panel. Today we have with us Professor Satish Deshpande, Professor, University of Delhi. He has been writing about this issue since 90s. Welcome, sir. You have 15 minutes.
Thank you very much. There are two major risks associated with being an academic. One is repetition. As the moderator just pointed out, many of us, including particularly Dilip ji and I don't know how many such panels we have been on for the last 20 years. Since the late 1990s, we have been arguing for a caste census. But as I said, academics are used to repeating things because we have to do it in our classes. The other thing that academics are, in a sense, expected to do is to deal with the boring part of every subject. So I will be spending a little bit of time on the conceptual apparatus that drives this whole thing of whether there should be a caste census or not. So if you imagine the question of a caste census as though it were a kind of car, one set of questions has to do with where is this car going, who is driving, who owns it, etc., those sorts of questions. What I'm going to do dealing with is opening up the hood of the car, looking inside the car. How does the machinery work? So let me start by saying that the terms which define the title of this panel, majority and minority, these are terms like, these are words which are almost at the end of their semantic journey, their journey of acquiring baggage in terms of meaning. They have already reached the end of that journey. Already when we say a word majority, it has so many political connotations. And we know that. And when we say minority, again, it has so many connotations. This is in a sense, this is the end of their journey. So we should start to think of these things at the beginning, before they have acquired too much baggage, before we have started thinking of them in terms of majority or minority. So let me speak in terms of different kinds of manyness or fewness. Not all kinds of manyness get to be majority in the political sense, with all the connotations that they have. And not all kinds of fewness turn into minority, right? In the social and political sense, a majority is something which implies a claim to or actual possession of different kinds of capital, if you like. So in an electoral democracy, being many means you have some kind of an electoral claim, because one person, one vote gives you that kind of claim. In other contexts, being few, particularly in the context of meritocracy, being the few who have quote unquote excellence on your side, then fewness works in a way that it doesn't work in politics. So in the same way, the obvious comparison here is to think of how manyness works in our political discourse today when we talk in terms of community, Hindu-Muslim, and how manyness and fewness works in the context of caste. So this is one axis. Could we have the first slide, please, Samir? Thank you. I'm inviting you to imagine the question that we are dealing with as being shaped by this kind of triangle, where each side of the triangle is a particular theme or a particular type of conceptual spectrum. So there are types of manyness and fewness, and there are types of moral or material capital that these manyness and fewness involves in different kinds of contexts. Everything is contextual, right? All of this is contextual. And then there is the all-important question of counting or not counting the kinds of manyness and fewness we are talking about. Counting amounts to a kind of visibility, right? When you count something, it becomes visible. When you don't count something, it does not acquire that social visibility that counting, especially in the context of a census, involves. So there is the question of whether a particular type of manyness is made visible or not. This question is related in turn to what type of moral or material capital does this sense of manyness or fewness that is involved here, what kind of claim does it involve? So if you think of the caste census as happening in terms of a kind of dynamic between the three sides of this triangle, this kind of a triangle, conceptual triangle, you'll begin to see what is at stake here and why a caste census has been such a difficult thing to achieve, despite, and why we have been going round and round on it, despite all the major issues having to do with it having already been settled. How we think in the context of the census in particular, how we think of types of fewness or manyness, or the types of moral or material capital, and therefore why we should count or not count, has to do with underlying ideas about the census and underlying ideas about caste. Could we have the second slide, please, now? Thank you. If you combine different models of the census with some model of caste, you get a particular kind of outcome in terms of an argument for or against a caste census. We don't have very much time, so I'm not going to go into the details of all of these models and these combinations, but I'm offering this as one way of thinking about this. This is part of something that is already published. That was at the time of the 2010 census, 2011 census. This article is there in the EPW, and it's co-authored with Mary John. What I'm trying to say is that if you think of the census as a kind of welfare program or a prelude to a welfare program, providing data for development, and if you also think of caste as basically meaning just the lower castes, then you will come up with certain arguments whether to have the caste census or not have the caste census. So, for example, you could argue, if you are worried that as an, presumably perhaps as an upper caste person or as a political party that represents largely upper caste, you might be worried, or even simply as a government in power, you might simply be worried that because the census is a kind of precursor to welfare programs, and because caste basically means lower caste for you, having a caste census might lead to more demands being made by electorally significant groups, and therefore you will decide whether or not to argue for it or against it, and so on. If you are thinking of the census as an identity fixing device, and you think of caste as an obstacle to modernity, then you would say don't count the caste, or don't count caste, because counting it will lead to compulsory identities, or it will lead to an identity like caste, which we want to get rid of. It will lead to it being strengthened and so on. So in the same way, if you think of caste as a research project, and then you think of it as, the census as a kind of research project that produces the truth about something, and you think of caste as a kind of complex social institution, you will come up with the argument that many academics have made in the past, that caste is too complex to count. What I'm proposing here, without going into the details of all of this, I'm happy to answer questions. What I'm proposing is that the most productive way to think of the caste census today is to think in terms of a collective self-portrait, and in terms of the census as a kind of collective self-portrait, rather than any of the other three things, and to think of caste as a web of distributional relations, which is two-sided, not one-sided. So if the census is to be a collective self-portrait, and if we think of caste as a web of distributional relations, and thirdly, if we have on our horizon the overall objective of wanting to annihilate caste, then what I would like to argue is that a caste census, paradoxical though it may seem, counting caste as part of a caste census is going to be an important step towards the annihilation of caste, a destination that has eluded us so far, and we have not succeeded in this. The state's being caste blind has not worked at all. In fact, it has worked in favor of the reproduction of caste inequalities in modernized, even more hard to get rid of, even more invisible forms. So essentially, because we have started to think of caste, by we, I mean the dominant common sense of caste has presented it effectively as though caste only meant lower castes. In the same way that race is truncated into non-whites, gender is truncated to women, and so on. So in the same way, we have thought the dominant common sense thinks of caste as being limited to lower castes. This helps to make the upper castes as castes invisible in our society. And because they are invisible in this way, their disproportionate share over national resources is also invisibilized. More importantly, the journey towards castelessness, if it is to be truly a true kind of caste, a transcending of caste, an annihilation of caste, will have to pass through caste. That is to say, we'll have to count caste, we'll have to recognize the many inequalities that flow from it even today. We'll have to recognize the very successful ways in which it has managed to reproduce, in which caste hierarchies have managed to reproduce themselves. It's when we start to think of all of this that we will begin and make significant progress towards the objective of removing or annihilating caste distinctions, making caste less meaningful. Before we are able to do that, before we arrive at that destination, our journey has to pass through talking more about caste, acknowledging its presence, counting it wherever it is relevant, rather than not talking about it, being silent about it, and so on, which is a policy more or less that the state has followed for a long time. And we have seen what that has produced. So the claim to castelessness in certain contexts, it has been the most disabling of things in our fight against caste inequalities. How to get people to acknowledge their caste. To acknowledge their caste does not mean that you acknowledge casteism. You acknowledge that you are a historical product of a particular system, not that you subscribe to it necessarily, or that you may not even be benefiting from it today. You may or may not be. That is not the point. The point is to recognize social origins. The point is to recognize the continuing significance of caste, particularly for those who are enabled precisely by the benefits of caste to have the luxury of feeling that they have no caste. As long as people, only some people, or rather people of some castes, will have the luxury of imagining themselves as being without caste, we will never be able to eradicate caste. So in order to start on that journey, everyone has to start by acknowledging that they have caste. And what better way to do it than in a census, which is not nobody's, which is a kind of collective self-portrait. Let us not worry about the other practical difficulties that have been raised. The arguments against this, against the claim that caste is too complicated to count, have been made again and again. I'm not going to repeat them here. By far the most complicated thing our census counts is work, the kind of work that people do. An enormous amount of effort goes into handling the raw data regarding work. Even our data on languages, even our data on religion yields a lot of raw data, multiplicities. Thousands of religions people say that they practice. And many thousands, 17,000 or more languages are spoken in India. This does not mean that this makes the language data useless or the religion data useless. But most of all, something that is not common knowledge, and there will be demographers speaking later in this seminar who will probably have more to say on this, enormously complex occupation data or work data is handled successfully ultimately by the census. So the argument that this, and plus of course, as has already been mentioned more than once, we have access to technology today, digital technologies, which make it possible to reverse processes of aggregation and consolidation, or even to have multiple ways of aggregating and consolidating data. So it is possible to count caste. It is important, the developmental reasons, that is to say, all the reasons that have been mentioned by other speakers, how it will help us in understanding the distribution of national resources, in understanding where different communities stand at this point of time, and therefore in adjusting our development programs. These are important arguments. But to my mind, the decisive argument about a caste census today is that we have to get every Indian to acknowledge is a historical embeddedness in caste. We must not allow any Indian to say that they have no relationship to caste. Even if they say they are given the option of saying that they have no caste, this option should be actively solicited. That is to say, they must be asked the question of what their caste is. And I feel that, therefore, the ideological reasons in this sense, the contribution that a caste census will make towards sensitizing people towards the continued existence of caste as an issue, as a reality in our society, rather than taking refuge in a kind of claim to castelessness that is available only to a few, by definition is available only to a few. To the vast majority of our population, the world is continually reminding them what caste they are. The world is continually telling them what caste they are. So until we begin to acknowledge this, until our collective self-portrait includes all of us in our historical identity, caste-based identities, I don't think we will make much headway in terms of making caste and caste discrimination and caste inequality less relevant in our societies. I'll stop here. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Deshpande. It was a conceptually oriented lecture. We got a lot more clarity on certain concepts which is utilized in classrooms, but you made very understandable to all of us and the audience. And with this, I would invite the next panelist for this session. We have with us Grace Banu, trans rights activist, founder of Trans Rights Now Collective. I invite you, welcome to this panel, ma'am. Over to you for 15 minutes. You have to speak, yeah. So is Grace Banu here? Am I audible?
Yeah, you are, Asha.
I think
I think there is some slight disturbance. Some connectivity issue. We can hear you, but there is some disturbance. Now we can't hear you. Would it be helpful if I ask? Okay. To switch off the video and speak, because sometimes it's very difficult to get smooth internet. So yeah, Grace, it would be, I think, helpful if you switch off the video and try speaking.
Am I audible?
Yeah. Now you are audible. Yeah.
Oh, okay, great. So I think my network is getting slow. That's right. So thank you so much for inviting me, the team, and to have to initiate the Caste Census discussion. So being a trans, so census because when those, as you all know, the Supreme Court of India, 2014 judgment, it is affirmed transgender persons' fundamental rights under the Constitution of India. So we have a constitution. So all the people know, most of people are saying, 2014, after 2014 Supreme Court judgment, you got that, this, but that the judgment affirmed the transgender persons are fundamental rights. So so it's affirmed the Constitution. Under the Constitution, we got our rights. And the definition of transgender person, Protection of Rights Act 2019, it includes socio-cultural communities and intersex person as well. So 2014 judgment and the Transgender Protection Act, it includes trans and intersex persons. So it's for transgender persons and the intersex persons. So we had a census, the government should took census in 2011. It's conducted before both not just NASA judgment and Act merely put out number of others. They put others category, which is wider than the transgender person. The number of the census number was 4,87,803, which is inaccurate, because to the 2011 we got very visibility space. The people recognition it's very few. So that's why, but 2011 we face too much of transphobia and the discrimination. So in that census, they consider all the trans people in the male category. So they put all the trans people, they cup in the male categories. So that is completely transphobic ideology. So they did. But they are seeing 4,89,000 trans person living in the India. It's not accurate. So many trans people are there, but we didn't have a proper census. When 2011 we got a census, that is this amount of thing, and now we are in the 2022. Between this all the years, so many visibility space and so many trans persons came out to show their identities. And for in that kind of census in Kenya, so Kenyan census counted intersex person in 2019. Our census officials should at least consult trans and intersex communities or persons before any census exercise so that more accurate data comes out. So while gender of the household may include transgender also, but where is the gender sensitive training of the enumerators? Because here, when the people who come to the census, so those person is cis person, and those person having casteism and the transphobia. So how do we create a sensitive training for them? And how do we give the training to those kind of people? So that is not there. And how are we majority or minority when we don't even exist on any of your data? So most of the government data and the research data continue to be binary. It's like public health data, higher education statistics, labor force data. So many data. All the data, it's following, it's continue to be a binary kind of data, but it doesn't include the trans people. It doesn't, it's completely exclude the trans people, the trans persons data. So the research community is completely transphobic. The research always focuses on the body and never opens the a larger social economic debate. So the research community people, who are all they're all cis people, and they want to know about my body and my where I'm coming from and all kind of data, but it doesn't create any kind of larger debate. So it's like they submitted their research reports, so that's it. Other than that, it doesn't give any kind of impact for the trans community. So when we go to the caste census, should be beginning of a process of recognizing and identifying newer marginalities, given the dynamic in which caste function in this country. So caste census is not a debate. It is the starting point of a process. So caste census, it should be, it is creating, it's identifying a newly marginalized community people or the intersectionality community people, the data. So here, the caste census it scars this society because of the word reservation. So, so here I to add another for your transphobic society to be scared of horizontal reservation. So our community people in India, the union government, they are going to put all the trans people in the OBC category. But in the trans community persons, we are having the DBA community trans, and how do we access the OBC category reservation? So it's completely against the reservational policy, and it's completely against the the equality. So we are all talking about the equality, but they are going to put all the trans people in the OBC category reservation, the category. In Tamil Nadu, based on 2014 judgment, the state government of Tamil Nadu, they put trans people who are having the caste certificate. So those people are going to access, have the rights to access the, whatever the caste they belong. So they are we have to use those reservation. But the people who doesn't have a caste certificates, you are automatically considered as a MBC, most backward class. So it's like a OBC. So we have the Gazette notification. In that Gazette notification, it's showing so many caste lists. So in that most backward class caste 36 B or C shows transgender eunuch, Tirunangai, Aravani. So those people are under the, it's a gender identity, but they put the caste list. So this kind of, diplomatic and the critical knowledge people are there, and they doesn't know about how to pronounce the trans people and how to handle the trans people. How do we give the rights to the trans people? So they don't know in the official also. So we are continuously educating them so many years. So like now we have a DMK government, it's a trans-friendly government, and they are doing so many welfare schemes for the trans people, but they need to focus on it. I'm talking about all the state and center government should focus on the rights-based issues. So welfare schemes or welfare measures, it's more important for the oppressed community, but at the same time, rights also need. So rights means we need educational rights, employment rights, and the reservational rights. So participating in these public space. So here, they are, when we say the horizontal reservation. So what is horizontal reservation? In India, we are following two categories of reservation. One is a vertical reservation and another one is horizontal reservation. In India, all the trans people, especially DBA community trans people, they are facing double amount of oppression in the name of caste and gender. So every day we are facing this both kind of oppression. So that's why we need all the people should participate in the public space, and all the community people. So here, when we give the vertical reservation, so vertical reservation is like a male, female, transgender category. That's it. So when we talk about the horizontal reservation, the name of gender and the caste base, we need to give a separate reservation for the trans people. So that is the the one new solution to get to participate all the spaces, to participate all the trans person this public space, the larger level space. So that's why we are demanding horizontal reservation. So we need separate horizontal reservation for the trans community. Because when we have a horizontal reservation, that time only we will, all the trans community should participate in the education and employment and the public space, political space, everything. So we need to focus on the rights-based issues. So many states and so many, the center and state government are focusing on the welfare measures for the trans community. You should, at the same time, you should focus on the rights-based issues, because we want to live with a society with a dignified life. And we are also taxpayer of this country. So whatever we are doing, our community, more than 70 years, our community people are doing begging and sex work. But we paid our tax. We are a taxpayer of this democratic, the so-called democratic country. So, but we didn't even get our rights. The rights means education opportunity, employment opportunity, and reservational opportunities. So when we get the reservational rights, because when we do the caste census, that is only solution to create a safe space for the trans people, to create a safe space for all community trans people to participate in this. So thank you so much for giving this opportunity. And Jai Bhim, Jai Pariyar, Jai Fatima, Jai Savitri. Thank you.
Thank you, Grace. It was such an educational talk you gave to us, and I really appreciate the way you are expanding the caste census discourse and problematizing the inadequacy of gender in it. And I hope there will be many more questions on the talk you gave, because you have highlighted really important issue of resourcelessness, which is always looked in terms of certain fixed categories, and how this is dynamic, and we require dynamic affirmative action and resource distribution policies, something which we need to think upon. So now I think that we are done with all the speakers, and we should have we have around 40 minutes, 38 minutes to have discussions. We have quite a lot of questions. In fact, there are questions for Sonia Jharia Minj ma'am also, and she has been very actively answering those questions in the chat box. So let me begin with certain broad let me flag certain broad issues, and meanwhile you answer them. I will collect those questions and will try to group them in a way that can be asked coherently. So there is this generic question which any of the panelists could tackle. So given the fact that dominant political forces are not committed to the issue, and this is well-established fact, how do you think state governments can fill, or can they fill the data gap? Because as Dilip Mandal sir highlighted, state governments cannot conduct caste census, but is there a way where state governments can pitch in and fill the data gap? So, yeah.
Asha, do you should I answer this question?
Yes.
Should I try? Should I give
Yes.
it a try? Okay. So if you take the issue of census in legal constitutional frame, census or caste census cannot be conducted by state government. That is the legal position. And I have mentioned it earlier that because of two things, because under the Census of India Act 1948, it has to be conducted by Census Commissioner, and Census Commissioner is a body or an office under Home Ministry, and it's a union government body, right? So this is the first thing. And other thing is that census is in the state list of constitution, and it has to be done by the union government only. So these are the two legal frames. Now, if some or other state decides to conduct caste enumeration and collect data, there is no legal thing to stop it from doing so. That's why we are having such exercises, and first such exercise was done by Karnataka government, though that data is not still in public domain. Some part of it has been leaked purposefully or whatever, so it's there, but the entire data is not there in public domain. Even Chhattisgarh is conducting similar exercise, and Maharashtra government is also ready with its own caste surveys. So these are surveys, and they can serve many purpose, but they don't have the legal sanctity. And those legal sanctities are mentioned in the Census Act, like government employees, especially teachers, cannot be deployed for any exercises other than teaching and conducting election and census exercises. That's why when SECC was done in 2011 and it was done till 2015, the government has to employ different sort of workers, like they outsourced it to some NGOs. Anganwadi workers were deployed for conducting that exercise, and because these persons are not from that geographical area all the time, so they don't have that capacity to conduct this exercise in a manner that provide us a good data set. So because of this, and for so many other reasons, if this exercise is done under Census of India Act, one cannot give wrong information, because one can be tried, one can be penalized for giving wrong data, or even the enumerator has legal obligation to write down the correct information what he is getting from the persons with whom he is talking or interviewing and getting data. So these all legal frame goes when census or survey is not conducted under Census of India Act. So I think the states can do it, and now in many of the cases, the Supreme Court is saying state government to come up with the data. So they are conducting such exercise, but then that cannot be replacement for caste enumeration under decadal census. So this is my argument, that let states conduct those exercises, fine, but caste census is required to have legally authentic data, because these data are have that sanctity of the Census Act. So this is I think altogether two different paradigm, to have caste surveys conducted by state government and having caste census or caste enumeration under union government. So that's my understanding at this moment.
Thank you. Thank you. In fact, there is another related question, because almost everyone and most of the scholars and media persons who are writing, who are pro-census, they say that governments are afraid to give out the result of caste census. So can this be expanded further? Like why is this an unjustified fear, or like is this fear really a real fear that governments are, or irrespective of who is the ruling government, which is the ruling party, they are afraid of releasing data? So why are they afraid? Because Professor Deshpande has also written an essay, Who is Afraid of Caste Census? So I would like any one of you to answer this question. Yeah.
I can start by making a contribution, and perhaps others can join in. In practical political terms, that is in terms of actual Kanimozhi madam will also be best suited to answer this. Data, reliable, authoritative data coming out about mismatches in the political system, that is over and under representation in terms of access to resources, can be in political terms a very, very tricky question. So even those who are in favor of a caste census, when it comes to actually, like what Dilip ji mentioned, the Karnataka example, part of the reason is because of the leaking and so on, but part of the reason is also because the government, any government in power, does not want the data to be released. As soon as it is out of power, it demands in the name of all kinds of things that data be made public, because the responsibility for then addressing these mismatches will have to be borne by whoever is in power. That is why the typical pattern is that because it is a popular demand, and it is popular because it encourages a belief that there will be redressal of any mismatches. So on the one hand, there is that. On the other hand, there is the fear of what will happen to those who are shown as being overrepresented. It has not been possible. I think there are only one or perhaps two exceptions in the history of reservation in India where any community has been taken off the reservation list. Any attempt to, and Karnataka again I know of, attempts to do so have always been beaten back. So while in theory it is good to talk about and it is easy to talk about matching numbers in this way, the political common sense that the nation should be shared proportionately to the numbers, this common sense logic is very, very hard to work out in practical politics. And that is one of the major reasons why, when in power, regardless of ideology, governments have been very, very shy about this kind of exercise.
Thank you. In fact, there is one more related question. In fact, Dilip sir has highlighted that ST and SC data, there is sort of caste data with census, and some amount of data has always been gathered. It is OBCs and upper castes who are not counted. But shouldn't discussion on caste census also talk about the quality and content of the information collected? Because we have minimal information on SCs and STs too. And in fact, Grace has highlighted we have minimal information on other categories
Gender
as well.
also.
Yes. So shouldn't we talk about quality and content of the information collected? Like how do we ensure or how do we make state more accountable on that part? Yeah, that would be a more qualitative kind of exercise, but can we answer this? Yeah.
I can start again. This is a important question, but it is not a question specific to caste. There has been a long tradition of debates about census data and how to interpret it and what have been the errors or in terms of classifications and so on. And these are important. These should continue. But there is in principle no reason on the basis of a preemptive belief in poor quality data to not have a caste census. It is a very difficult exercise. Nobody is claiming that it is going to be easy. And there will have to be an enormous amount of post-census, post-actual enumeration data work done to make that data usable. But exactly that kind of invisible work is done without comment on occupation. Exactly that kind of work is done on religion. And it is quite possible to work out, and Professor Gellner has written in the chat about Nepal, where they have been having a caste census since 1991, and the sky has not fallen. Yes. And the data is usable. So yes, it is a very complex, very difficult exercise. There will be continuing debates about it, but that is common to all subjects that the census deals with, not only caste.
Right. Thank you, sir. Yeah.
So, sorry. I just want to add that actually the purpose of census is much more than head count only. It's not that we are just going to get some numbers. And with the new technology and AI and big data analysis, if we correlate all those 42 answers of 42 questions, you can have many sort of data, and that can be done in real time. It's not like earlier censuses, when census was done in 28 days, and all those correlation and tabulation and aggregation used to take around 5 to 6 years. So now, as the technology is there, and this time we are conducting it on tablets, and it's a digitally, it will be done digitally, as it has been announced by the Census Commissioner. So it's not difficult to get all those correlations about economic activities and social cultural aspects and migration and all those demographic data. I think this time around it's it will be easier, at least not quite easy, but it will be easier to get all those correlations about caste, religion, and occupation, and kacha house, pakka house, and distance from water source, and all these, and migration, and this. I think there is a possibility. It's more about having the intention to do that work, but that data will be there for aggregation and correlations. I don't think there will be a big problem in if even if I see the 1931 census or even 1921 census, you can go and see in the library, you will find that those correlations has been done during British period. So it's like you have data about Bombay state, that how many Brahmins have stated that English is their primary language. We have that type of data. So it's not that difficult to have it in 2022. So it's more about intention. If you correlate data relating to gender and correlate with their occupation, we can easily have data how many trans persons are in which occupation, what they live in which sort of houses. So these correlations can be made. I think it's not that difficult. It should not be, at least.
Thank you. Thank you. In fact, related to this, I would like Grace, Banu to expand and elaborate upon the point where she was talking about data for dignity and data for not just distributional justice, but data for dignity. So would you elaborate upon that point?
So yes, so when the 2011 census has happened, the government put, it doesn't even mention our gender identity. They put male, female, and others, and they put the name, 1, 2, and 9. So in Tamil Nadu, when we say the 9, so 9 it's an abusive word for the trans people, and they use. But after we raised the issues and we we raised our opposition, and after that they changed 1, 2, 3. So now here again they put 1, 2, 3, male, female, and others. 1, 2, 3, male one category, female second category, and transgenders are third category. And now they are saying, based on the Nal Services Union of India judgment, and they are saying, we are considering all the trans people in the third gender category. And most of the states, they put trans people in the third gender. So when we say third gender, who is the first gender? Do you have any act? Do you have any clarification? So you are the first gender, you are the second gender, and why I'm a third gender? So here, every time the cis people, you have the decision authority for us. So we need to say that that's our own identity. So that's our rights. I only have the rights to say my identity. But always you people are, giving the label. And I have to take it that, oh yes, because you are doing for me, it's such a useful, useful things and everything. But it's not at all. You should know what is ally, what is community. You are not our leader. So we have our own leaders and we have our own representative people, and you should agree what is our demand. So this is our demand. So like, and this kind of situation, how do we change? So when we create a census, when we go to the census, the enumerators should know what is casteism and what is transphobic and how to be handle the trans person. And in that 2011 census, as I said, they put others category, but they are considered all the trans people in the male categories. They include the male categories. So that is completely transphobic thoughts. And that is your cis people thought, imposing us. Your thoughts, it's imposing us. So here we need a sensitization to the enumerators, how to handle and how to pronounce the trans people. You should ask, each and every person should know, should ask what is your pronoun? How do we mention? So those kind of training should have all the enumerators. So here, now when 2011 census has happened, it says 5 lakh trans people around. But now the 10 years, we have so many visibilities and we are seeing so many trans persons. But even though now also they are saying, 4 lakh trans people, 4 lakh trans people, 4 lakh trans people. No. This 10 years, so many trans people came out. And they don't have a data. For example, in Tamil Nadu, they are saying 12,000 trans persons are there because of they have the people who are having the transgender identity card. But what about the people who doesn't have a privilege to get that identity card? How do we reach out them? How do we collect those kind of trans persons data? So they should include. So like this, so many, it's like a excludeness. It's happened to us. So all time, this is people who are having transphobia and the casteism. The casteist people and the transphobic people only doing the census. So they should know, we should, the government should give a sensitization to them. Because that's not our work. We are like a super tired. Every day we have to educate. We have to educate with all the people. We have to educate the patriarchal society. We have to educate within our own community. We are facing the caste discrimination. So is anybody focusing on that? They are thinking, they are blindly thinking, oh, yes, trans people doesn't have a caste, religion, anything. But it's there within our own community. Caste is there. Caste is everywhere, wherever we go. So within our own community also, we are facing caste oppression. We are facing gender oppression from the civil society. So we need to focus on that kind of views.
Thank you, Grace. Very, very important point, very important intervention you have made. Sensitization of the entire system is very important, and it shouldn't be burden of trans people only. It should be burden of state and civil society. Very rightly pointed out. Now let me read some of the questions from audience. There are quite a few. I have grouped them, and let me see how many questions can we take. There is a question because there is a new quota, EWS quota, and I saw a couple of questions. So let me broadly summarize it. This is a misleading category. They say that the nomenclature EWS is quite misleading. Why can't we call it upper caste non-creamy layer, like we called OBC non-creamy layer? So any thoughts on this question? Any one of you could answer this?
Yeah, so sorry, should I? Okay, so actually EWS Act, if you see the Act, in the Act itself, it's clearly mentioned that EWS is a category which will not include SC, STs and OBCs. So it's clearly upper caste quota, and it's not upper caste for upper caste poor. because the criteria fixed by the government is 8 lakh rupees income limit, and that translates into around 66,000 per month income. So it's not even for the poor. It's most of the that is the problem, because of we don't have caste data. Otherwise, we would have known that how many upper caste people are in the ambit of this quota. So it is actually the right nomenclature should be economically weaker section, or rather middle class upper caste quota. And as it is being discussed in legal fraternity, and the case is going on, and it has been challenged by Janhit Abhiyan and some other organizations. So let's see how the legal process happens. But it has been challenged, and some of the states, as far as I know, Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh, and some of the states are not implementing it. And their argument is that they don't. They are in those states, upper caste population is not more than 3% or 5% or 7%, whatever. So this is their argument. And while implementing, while it was being tabled on the floor of the House, it was said that it will not impact SC, ST and OBC quota. But now more and more advertisements are coming, and if we see how the quota is being distributed, in many of those advertisements, you will see that this quota is actually impacting SC, ST and OBC quota. So there are many problems with this quota, and I think this is against so many constitutional frames. If you see the constitutional debates, constitutional assembly debates and all that, this quota is actually hugely problematic. And I am of the view that it should go, but let's see how it actually being argued, how the especially the union government argues it in the court, and even the criteria is under review of 2-judge bench. So let's see.
There is a question for Professor Deshpande. Basically, the person is trying to understand how acknowledging one's caste can possibly lead to annihilation of caste, and how that acknowledgement can be provided by caste census. Though you have elaborated upon it, but if you could.
Okay. Short answer, so it will be very telegraphic. Caste is a relationship. It is not a thing or an attribute. So if it is a relationship, it has two ends. If there is caste discrimination, discrimination is not possible without there being two sides. One person who's doing the discriminating, other person who's discriminated against. So if we start thinking of caste as a kind of attribute and slide from there to making it stand only for the lower castes, and further slide then of thinking of the lower castes as some kind of supplicants before the government for government programs, government assistance, and that this is their problem. So counting castes means counting lower castes. Why? Because they need the state support. This is exactly the way we will never be able to get rid of caste, because the other side of caste is forgotten. That caste produces privilege as much as it produces disprivilege. So the state has been helping upper castes as much, though in a less visible way. This is what our constitution, in a way, the mixed blessing plus curse that it has given the lower castes, is that the way to enforce their rights as castes must pass through the very visible circuit of capital, of politics. Whereas the way of upper castes getting their caste privileges need not pass through overt politics. It can be through the economy in invisible ways. And that is how it has reproduced itself in our country. So until we recognize the two-sidedness of caste, and until we begin to see it as producing both privilege and disprivilege, and until we begin to see it as something larger than just a matter of government welfare programs, we will never be able to annihilate caste. If by annihilation of caste is meant making caste irrelevant for material, deciding anyone's material chances, or for deciding how much dignity, whether they will get dignity or how much dignity they will get as persons.
Thank you. And there are many questions which is being asked with respect to OBC category as well as ST and SC category about, and this is a question that has been thrown again and again, and people have tried to elaborate upon this, about the dominance of certain communities within the category. So, and they're amassing the resources. So how do you respond to that? Because that is the question which comes up again and again whenever you speak of expanding the reservation.
Yeah, so first I would like to just add something to what Satish ji has said, that not enumerating caste, what is the outcome? If you see it teleologically, what is the telos? What we have achieved by not enumerating caste? Has it produced, or is it leading to a situation where caste will be annihilated? I have serious doubts. So even that teleological argument says that let's go for it, let's count it, because not counting is not leading to a situation where we are not having those problems.
I think we lost Dilip Mandal, sir. He got disconnected. So should I ask another question? Meanwhile, he is trying to get back, I think. There is this question, though Kanimozhi has left, and there are very like 3-4 questions for her. So because some people from Tamil Nadu, they have been asking in the chat box about Dalit communities and Dalit women of Tamil Nadu. So how do we address that question within the larger question of representation, and representation ensured via enumeration and other processes? So if any one of you, though she's not here, so I won't pressurize. Yeah, great. You want to take up that question?
Yes. So when we say the Dalit women, not only it's in the Tamil Nadu, so all the across India, all the Dalit women are there. So specifically when we say the Dalit women, so here all the Dalit women doesn't have a privilege to access the mainstream spaces, the larger level spaces, and they should in specifically in Tamil Nadu, the representative Dalit women, it's very less, and across India also it's very less. The organization people and movements, the larger level, participating the larger level movement, it's super hard to access those kind of spaces. So being I know very well, accessing the space, accessing the public space, accessing the larger spaces is super difficult. So participating in the census, so that is also, it's giving the Dalit women participating in the census they know what is this and why this this kind of data. So we give awareness for them, and the people who have the privilege, so share their privilege. So I think Dalit women, it's very less, because when we go to the power, when we go to the decision authority, so that is the original recognition. So that is part of the, how do we say, the spaces. So here all the time occupied by the patriarchies, the people.
Thank you, Grace. And Dilip Mandal sir is back. So would you like to conclude? And then the last comment will be by Sona Jharia ma'am. She's raising her hand, and then we will wrap up this session. So would you like to conclude?
Yeah. So my argument is that even if someone is raising the issue of some dominant communities grabbing more positions and whatever, so even if there is the issue of OBC bifurcation or trifurcation to ascertain which of the castes among OBCs are more deprived and which are dominant, without census data and caste data, how would you know? And because of this, despite having Rohini Commission getting 12 extensions, and the term of this commission is getting lengthier and lengthier, it is not, this commission is not coming up with its report, because as I have told you, that you need to have the two set of data to ascertain which community is more deprived and which is more empowered. You need to have the total number and their numbers in jobs and educational institutions. So even for that, the caste enumeration is required. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. So we will have one last comment by Sona Jharia ma'am. Ma'am, please go ahead. She's raising her hand. Yeah. Ma'am, please go ahead. I can see your hand raised. Do you want to say something? I think she's not here. Ma'am, are you around? Sona Jharia ma'am, are you around?
Asha, looks like we lost. Oh, she's here. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Go ahead, ma'am.
No, I missed. There was some query, was it?
No. There were many queries, and I can see you have been answering them live.
Yeah.
Would you like to say, because I saw your hand raised, so would you like to?
No, did I? No, I'm not supposed to have raised. No, sorry.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
But it was a delight to listen to Dilip and Dr. Professor Deshpande, yes. And it was good to listen to Grace too, yes.
Thank you. So now we have come to the end of the session, and I am now inviting Shireen to conclude the session. My part is over, Shireen. Over to you.
Thank you, Asha. Thank you to all the speakers for this really engaging session. We will now conclude this, and our next session is in half an hour on the census and the colonial construction of Hinduism. For those of you who have registered, you would have got a link in your inbox, and the session will be moderated by Dr. Nidhan, and it will be attended by Gopal Guru, Anupama Rao, and Rekha Raj. So we hope to see you there, and thank you so much for being such an engaging audience. I can see the Q&A is still popping as I speak. So hopefully we'll continue this conversation over the next 2 days, and see you soon.
Yes, I'd like to apologize to all those people who have been asking questions on the Q&A and haven't got a response. My apologies. I couldn't divide my attention between listening to speakers and typing. So please forgive me for that. Feel free to email and I'm happy to continue the discussion. As I'm sure Dilip ji, Grace and Sonacharya ma'am, everyone will be happy to continue.
Yeah, sure. Thank you everyone. Thank you so much.